Welcome to Memoir Church. So glad you're here. Yay! For those of you who don't know me, I'm Suze Allen, and this is an event that I started because I just really fully believe in the power of shared stories. And these are some of my favorite writers. And these are the times that we need to be writing and shining a light on the truth and what's hard and what's beautiful and build bridges. So thank you all for coming. It's fabulous to have you. So we're here the first Sunday of every month, and most often we have one featured writer that I interview, and they read from their memoir or their memoir stories. And there's a few of you, many of you that are reading today have had their own been hosted in their own memoir church. It's just a beautiful way to spend an hour on a Sunday with writers that have beautiful things to say, and it connects us all. So we are going to get started. So today's featured writers are Nancy Ankowitz, myself, Jen Babcock, Morgan Callan Rogers, Dewey Davis Thompson, Michelle Finley, Lisa Stathopoulos, Roland Tech, and Peter Welch. And this is a themed Sunday, and it was called This America because there's just so much going on, and I wanted to address it. So I'm starting out. This is a poem that I wrote after the election, and when I went off of news and then fell off the wagon. It's called News Drunk. Fell into a Saturnine ravine yesterday afternoon, picked up a paper and fell off the wagon. Read a little, just a finger or three, a sniff, a swirl, a tiny taste, a slug of miasma, a shot of broom. Try to stop there. But you know, one headline leads to another, and next thing you know, you're consuming whole articles, media blitzes, breaking news, always breaking, and you can't stop. Even though your gut lurches, you've got the vertigo and you cannot find your balance or your words or your bearings, and you forget where you left your compass, the keys to your sanity, the purse of your well-being, and the story spins itself until it is the only story, and everything is bad and wrong and doomed. So you cook extravagantly, eat a big plated dinner, altogether too much chocolate afterwards, watch reruns of Law and Order SVU because they always wrap it up, because you love true crime and it's not a crime. And then you take to the bed, sick and tired of being sick and tired. You get a little hair of the dog, late night comics, levity news to calm your nerves. Just a fatigued chaser of fear not, they can't possibly, he'll never. Then a nightcap of the resistance. Vive la. And you lie awake, stone cold sober. Try to read your book, which fortunately or unfortunately is a paragon, about an Israeli and a Palestinian who lost their daughters to war, but they become friends, and that is comforting, and you fall asleep. REM dreams, busy but elusive. Something needs fixing in rambling houses where people known and unknown are in trouble, and it is up to you to solve the mystery, the problem, save the day, them, you, everyone. And you wake up hungover from the relapse of your news addiction. And you vow to start over one day at a time. Say the serenity prayer, though you are not a praying woman, but rather because Reinhold Niebuhr wrote it in his stand against Nazi anti-Semitism and U.S. neutrality in World War II. What you write in this poem and plan your resistance. And then I'm going to read something, a little addendum that I wrote. for today. Oh, I'm so angry at so many things, but mostly at how we cry. He can't do that. That's not constitutional. This is not what this country was founded on. You just can't pick people off the street and jail them. They have to follow the rule of law. That's illegal. You can't make money off the presidency, the emoluments clause. And none of it matters. He do it anyway, and nothing happens. I'm angry at the way we gnashed our teeth. Angry and sad. Felons can't vote, but they can run for president. And if they become president, his sentencing all goes away. Yes, Virginia, there is a lawless Orange King in the making. Seemingly untouchable, thumping people head, making money hand over fist, appointing crooked judges, weaponizing the Justice Department, taking food out of the mouths of children, criminalizing the poor, the unhomed, the downtrodden, ripping away health care from the elderly, families, and mental health and addiction sufferers, penalize being other, LGBTQ+, a person of color, a legal immigrant, an asylum seeker, women, giving them no choice in the decisions of their own bodies, letting them die in parking lots rather than offering a life-saving medical procedure, risking lives, killing people around the globe. No U.S. aid, no money for art or music or schools, or nonprofits doing good, or research or weather or FEMA for the natural disasters that are amping up and sweeping lives and livelihoods and homes and neighborhoods and families away. Promoting assault weapons and ignoring mass shootings, school killings of innocent children. And this administration is unstoppable. My heart races, pulse quickens. I stumble, dizzy with incredulity. Fear closes off my airwaves. I sink down into a hopeless morass, roiling with climate change, rising temperatures, endangered and extinct animals, land grabs, drilling, deregulations, pollution, our dying planet, tech bros, billionaires getting billionairier, rule of law, lawlessness, Supreme Court jesters piling on immunity and power for the white, mostly male men, mostly male, few corporations, authoritarians on a clear path to end democracy, greed, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, fascists, racists, relentless, valueless, money grubbing. Give me my piece of the pie, your piece of the pie. I want your piece of the pie. Veruca Salts, screaming, mouths open, tongue reaching, spittle flying. I want it all. And then I breathe summer air through a jagged windpipe into my lungs, and they expand. I listen to the warbling warblers, the Baltimore Orioles, the ruby-throated grosbeaks, the Carolina wren, the seagulls, as I toss off into the salty sea, float weightless and one with the ocean, and come back home to bullfrogs singing in their baritone choruses, fireflies lighting up my field, the woods, small lights that show me the hope in numbers, and tiny rays of light zipping in the darkness, and I reach my hand out to you to offer my heart and my love, and hand over hand over hand, you save me from the deep despair, as I hope I can save you for just a minute, because minutes build into movements, and now more than ever, we need each other's voices and strength, so we can build a bridge of resistance ever stronger with all our reserves, our resiliency, our empathy, our creativity, and our imagination. We can walk into the light and into love together. Thank you. And now we have Dewey Davis Thompson. There you are, Dewey.
Hey, everybody. It's so nice to see you all here. Big room of people is wonderful. This is a piece I wrote when 47 was still 45. In the play Bent, I found out pink triangles were lower than yellow stars. Triangles got no potatoes in their soup, and triangles died first. So in today's America, I sit here zen like with the pandemonium in the aviary and ponder my red, white, and triangular fate. Giant oaks shade the Passion Fruit Institute for Wayward Boys. We need more of them. The yard once had been all sand spurs, but a cutting here, a plant swap there, and a few USF Botany School rarities from friends who swear they were rescuing them back in 2001. Today, red passion flowers burst forth, jasmine, musk, and butterflies float over the pond and Ersatz Mayan pyramid. One year, parrots moved into a palm tree near the aviary. Parrots inside, parrots outside. I wonder what they said to each other. We have peanuts. We have soy milk. Oh, yeah? We have freedom. Chicken wire keeps the birds in and the predators out. A screen layer was meant to protect us from bugs, but like the Bill of Rights, it is quite shredded. Incarcerated in my pandemonium, the literal name for a flock of parrots, there is peace. I sit in lotus and we settle. Haughty Rio, gorgeous green and broken tail, sits aloof. Mango, a bright yellow conure on my knee. 30-year-old Jende JJ cuddles on my shoulder. I'm safe here. The new adoptee Scooby climbs to his perch. When Scooby's flight feathers grow back, he will be a free-flying sun conure. But this 10 by 30 universe is still a cage. Like everyone during the Great Intermission under house arrest, observed by phones and televisions. 100 deep breaths, counting 10 on one hand, collecting tens on the other. A droopy-eyed hush of avian zen. Then Rio hears a hawk patrolling the coastline. Screech! Addicted to money, mankind steals all the chickens' eggs and nets tropical birds. What happens to the chickens in their coops also happens to people in our coops. You could get a few $1,000 for my pandemonium, but I am not greedy, and they are not mine. I am theirs. What happens to them if I am nabbed at night by some right-wing goon squad? Who would be there to give kisses at 10 o'clock and cookies at 4? Who will do night-night lovings if Mike and Steve and I are disappeared? First they came for the chickens, but I was not a chicken.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, thank you, Dewey. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Okay, next up is Nancy Ankowitz.
Hi. I wrote this around Martin Luther King Day. Raising a quiet voice amid blaring anti-Semitism.
Hello.
I've long struggled with feeling drowned out by others' opinions, to the extent that I've learned from that and gotten my voice heard. I'm eager to inspire others to do the same, especially my fellow introverts. As we commemorate the life's work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we tap into the power of finding our voice and speaking about what matters to us, even if others disagree. That can be extra challenging for us introverts. This is often true when it comes to politics, which can trigger our imposter syndrome if we don't feel like a leading expert. As of recently, I find myself speaking up more in response to the quotidian, "How are you doing?" rather than my usual New Yorker shorthand, "Hey, you?" I've stretched beyond my comfort zone and shared, heartbroken, about the war in the Middle East. If you inquired further and I felt safe enough, I might stretch more. I'm horrified by Hamas's savage attacks on Israel on October 7th, 2023, and the gaslighting of Jews around the world. The ghastliness of gas in the same breath as Jews notwithstanding. Recently, I've watched swastikas brandished from the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree to the Sydney Opera House. I feel too raw to risk a political debate, despite the silence is violence messaging from the progressive zeitgeist. I wonder where I belong at a wake for the woke who lean in to blame victims. At the core, I'm against all violence and the suffering of all people. But I'm pro defending a democracy that's being attacked. I'm pro freedom of speech, but not hate speech, not speech that incites violence. Incoming missiles. Pause a call with a friend in Tel Aviv. Vile, violent images flash on all my devices. Mutilated, half naked bodies in pickup trucks and grandmothers carted off on motorcycles, plus protests, masses of students and professors from ivory towers with double standards, and their presidents spreading milquetoast pronouncements about crowds on campus extolling genocide as long as the target is Jews. Jews are white and successful, right? So they must be oppressors, right? Actually, the majority of Jews in Israel are of Middle Eastern and African descent and are from all economic strata. In a binary world of oppressors and oppressed, the one form of racism that seems politically correct is anti-Semitism. Dual narratives, moral equivalency, virtue signaling, intersectionality. At the center of all those terms batted about are Palestinian civilians who are manipulated and brainwashed from childhood by the terrorists in charge who've earned a gold star for PR. Hamas is transparent that its end goal is to kill Jews, descendants of those who wore yellow stars that their Nazi mass murderers forced upon them. Speaking of descendants, should all of us cede our land to whomever lived there before? And before what? Where do we start the timeline to honor Indigenous people? Why are educated people defending a death cult and its fans who used their own people, half of whom are children, as human shields? Hamas has long spent international aid on infrastructure, but not to educate those children and lift its society from poverty. Instead, it has constructed elaborate tunnels under hospitals, schools, and mosques from which to shoot missiles at Jews. That same terror organization and those it represents wildly cheer on the kidnapping, torture, and incineration of Jews and promises to do more of the same. Its own charter, based on religious extremism, is dedicated to the decimation of Israel, forcing the Jews into the sea. Up next, the United States. Will I get canceled for writing this, fired, hate mail, worse? Those I admire are taking a stand, are fearless, like the few Palestinians with the guts to denounce the violence their leaders are inflicting on their own people. Creepily, the internet finds some of them for me, tracking my pulse, feeding it into my feed. It reads my psyche like with tropes like Me Too, unless you're a Jew, amid a chilling draft of silence from women's organizations worldwide, especially at the UN, in response to the mass rape of Israeli women. Righteousness rules. So wake me up when it's over. That's the same UN through its UNRWA arm, with its multi-billion-dollar international funding that preaches the hatred of Israel and Jews to Palestinian children who are born into a society that kills those who don't agree with them, including Jews, Americans, former Muslims, LGBTQ individuals, and anyone else who supports democracy. I belong to a tribe that's been enslaved, tortured, and murdered for thousands of years, scapegoated. Still, I refuse to be a victim, even though I could hide my Jewishness. But you don't look Jewish, and you can still change your last name, I've heard. It's a tribe that some say is chosen, but doesn't want to get picked on. Who does? Democracy is at jeopardy with Palestinian PR lines, like from the river to the sea. My grandparents fled anti-Semitism to contribute profoundly to the United States, a land that's been a refuge for many from sea to shining sea. Yet the tides have turned with a tsunami of Jew hatred. I reflect more on Dr. King, a role model for anyone subjected to hatred and prejudice, to use one's voice. Like much of what he shared, these words of his anchor me. The whole world must see that Israel must exist and has the right to exist and is one of the great outposts of democracy in the world. So, how am I doing amid the rising tide of anti Semitism, which remains a socially acceptable, even hip form of hatred? With a heart that continues to sink, this introvert is using her voice. Why now? I believe my words can have power because I'm speaking my truth. Thank you, Dr. King. If you believe your words can have power too, please join me.
Gorgeous, Nancy. Thank you. Your words do have power. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay. Michelle Finley is up next.
Mama, how did we get from Africa to America? She digested library books like a mama bird, feeding us information not in our school books, and drew illustrations of us in Africa, praying in high fashion with our lithe bodies to our fabulous deities, both infinite and one. Inter-European weapons of greedy mass destruction, then the shackle raped middle passage babies, our suicided bones littering the Atlantic in the aftermath. Naked auction block humility to cotton picking fingers under the great white political agricultural whip. Generations of torture, rape, and creative terrorism. Continual fear of any cultural remnants of identity, pride, or solace that may lead to internal freedom or insurrection. Spiritual disciplines brutalized, reduced to primitive voodoo savagery, African dance and drumming forbidden. No brown enslaved persons permitted to meet except in presence of a white male of 12 or older to report back that we stayed low of soul, all the while forbidden to read or write for generations of preparations for SATs. Brown bag church knells what kind of anti-Hammurabi color code forced Christian message one receives to justify things like force breeding us as livestock. Overseers and paddy rollers hunting my ancestor fugitives and free men alike, falling down in fields of dreams, roped from horseback, dragged back to where the pale delude themselves they are our masters in place of God's eyes, because we all know what absolute power does, even to the good and the wise. All the while behaving more like devils, routinely raping and selling our babies and daddies, and disowning the courageous few righteous white folk thrown boldly yet tragically into the stew. To this day, nigger lovers are still reproved in this land, losing status and income until they model to the young. They should feign blindness to this binding, lest they lose their white skin privilege too. After weeks of silent learning, my nine, after weeks of silent learning, my 9-year-old mind pregnant with malignant truth, I stood locked, full, muscles taut, fist squoze tight as embryo rosebuds against the horror of suddenly seeing where I fit in the world. No trees or grass, a concrete reservation reality where white teachers cover the same material every year at school. My mother reclining in her bed, sketching how stones legally bold heads off almost escaped slaves, while my people were forced to watch to erase hope from their hearts. Mama looks up at me, snorting steamy emotions, and says, "What's wrong with you?" My head swivels, eyes darting, flying away on searching feathers of shame. She waits, looking amused. "I'm mad," I state, frustrated with the impotence of my response. "What you gonna do about it?" My eyes bulge and flash as I say, "I don't know." My soul falling out of me. I am gasping, my whole body slumped. "I don't know," I said, on the verge of sobbing. So Mama got up and said, "Let's go make a yellow cake from scratch." So we did. It was delicious. So when I hear "Make America Great Again," the images of lynching that inform many violent police encounters I have directly witnessed and undergone to this day come to mind. The quiver of whip-seared flesh and live amputations burn and gut my flesh in this moment, made present by the bone-breaking beatings I survived as an ongoing part of this American legacy, which threatens to erase social justice progress back from discrimination to actual concentration camps and plantations. Just when we were all working hard at our voluntary jobs with high hopes for our children's education, here come these terrified terrorist MAGA maggots aspiring to transform into a Sixth Reich, slithering in ignorance, dangerous as metal melting poison, subverting a potentially righteous nation of indigenous, Asian, African, European, Latinx, queer, all religions, all people, all hopes, and other sacred sacrificers of blood and babies and labor and loyalty. They aim to destroy the America that their own European forefathers envisioned. Though our forefathers could not deliver it in their time, they set checks and balances so the struggle would get us closer and closer, right up to this year and this day, this hour, in this clay. This current coup is a dishonorable attempt to cheat generations of soldiers of all colors who died for a democracy which must stand against treason and stand against billionaire level sedition, which I will fight with these hands now in full bloom of joy and purpose as I write from my heart with a song born of pain, yet potently producing the beauteous power of my experienced truth, lithe in service to my ancestral deities, one and infinite, birthed here onto the page of my mother's challenge. Baby, what you gonna do about it?
Woo!
That's
Just, yeah. Amazing, Michelle. Thank you. And that voice, spoken in that voice, those words so profoundly deep and gorgeous. All of, everybody, thank you. I already feel like I need to take to the streets and I'm on a dirt road. That's going to be hard. Okay, Morgan, Callan, Rogers, you are up, my beauty.
This is something completely different. Before he was my father, Warren Edmund Rogers was a shy, nearsighted boy who wore glasses. He was nicknamed Smudge. He didn't know why. Maybe I was dirty one day and they gave me that name, he said. Dad came from Winnegans, Maine. Winnegans, Abenaki Indian for Little Portage, is a tiny village tucked between the city of Bath and the town of Phippsburg. Phippsburg is a farming and fishing town beached along the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. In my American experience, there has always been water. There have always been boats of all sizes, all kinds, all of them traveling up and down rivers and sailing over the Atlantic Ocean to fight for causes they believed in. Dad attended a one-room schoolhouse in Winnegans. He seldom talked about his childhood, except to say that he liked to skate on Winnegans Pond and that his mother cooked tripe sometimes, and he hated tripe. So-and-so is tougher than tripe. He was also hit by a car when he was young. No details. He seemed fine when I knew him, or he seemed fine in ways that I could see. His mother, Dorothy, Dottie, or Nanny, came to Winnegans via Boston, via Prince Edward Island. When Dottie was young in Boston, her parents died. She told me once that she danced on the streets of Boston for pennies, but that has never been verified. At some point, she was sent up to Phippsburg to be with relatives. She met and married my grandfather, Walter Rogers, when she was 16. Walter was a handsome man whose Phippsburg roots ran deep. "We've been here since the rocks," my father always said when asked. My grandfather, Walter, drove the trolley for the nearest city, Bath. He parked the trolley in Winnegans every night. He parked it permanently in Winnegans after its services were no longer needed. Later in his life, my father told me, my grandfather got drunk one night and broke every window in the trolley. When he was about 50, he fell to the sidewalk in Bath, Maine, dead from a heart attack. Before she was my mother, Frances Elizabeth Callan was a 5-foot whirlwind. She was secretary of her high school class, acted in school plays, was a member of endless committees. She was the eldest of 5 children, the first child of an Irish immigrant's son and French-Canadian immigrant's daughter. When my mother was small, she loved Shirley Temple. She loved to tap dance. My grandfather would take her to one of the town taverns where she would tap dance for customers in her Shirley Temple dress. I am the American child of immigrant actors, singers, musicians, and readers. My grandfather, Jim, had a fine Irish tenor. My mother's mother, Stella May, Nana, was a fun-loving flapper, and she had a fine contralto voice and hot damn leg, even at 73 when she died. She was dramatic, could faint on cue, loved to play practical jokes. I don't know where and how and when my parents met in high school. Dad was then a woman hater, and he was a bona fide card-carrying member of the Dink Club, which was not a difficult club to get into if the member had a penis. Somehow, he changed his tune about women and fell for Mom. But he had one hurdle to overcome her with. He had warts, she would say, wrinkling her nose to emphasize her disgust. I told him to get rid of them, and he did. Did he use some kind of wart remover? No time for that. He chewed them off. That's right. Totally gross. But it is also love. Franny caved, and after that, there are photographs of them everywhere. Him, shy and absolutely Twitter-pated. She, tiny, absolutely control. He adored her. She adored him, but he adored her. I come from wart-hating, stubborn, head over heels, and love people. Some of whom immigrated, some of whom have been here since the rocks. All of whom never faltered in their belief in this country. Now is not the time to falter.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
The rocks, old as rocks. Oh, gorgeous. Thank you. That was beautiful, Morgan.
Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, Lisa Stathopoulos.
This is the very end of a long chapter that's called Welcome to My Nightmare in a memoir that's coming out next month. Crippling anxiety and depression seem inexplicably unfair for any soul, especially one so young, so fragile and lonely. I learned to dread the phone's ring. Mom, I don't feel good. Are you having bad thoughts, Eli? Yeah. I'm coming down. Stay where you are, okay? Silence. Okay, Eli? Eli, I'll be right there. It's midnight, and once again, I'm on my own. The entire system has failed us. Crisis hotline, please hold. Eons pass, the muzak drones in my ear. I feel like I'm gonna throw up or have a stroke. How many times have I been here? Too many. Once is too many. What is the nature of your problem? The kind voice on the other end of the line is a relief. It's my son. He's suicidal. He's driven off in his truck. I need help now, please. Please, now. She can barely understand me through my sobs. Could you send somebody, please? He says he's going to kill himself. Someone is on the way. I know it is hard. Stay on the line, okay? Can you tell me a little bit more about your son? I wipe tears and snot on my damp sleeve. Where to start? At school, my job. The fact that I see what others have trouble seeing helps me to help other people's kids. Lisa, can you come down to the nurse's office? We have Caleb. He was in the locker room with a knife. Coming. I share a glance with my teaching partner. Caleb's been AWOL since second block. It's now 1:30. Caleb made a very nearly successful suicide attempt a year ago, swallowing a toxic combo of prescribed drugs. Emergency personnel almost couldn't bring him back. He earned the longest stay in an adolescent mental health facility after this, the longest stay I've known of my entire teaching career. Flying down 2 flights of stairs to the nurse's office, Mrs. Coletti, our wise and kind-hearted nurse, greets me, leads me to the curtained portion of her tiny office where Caleb sits, grimy hooded sweatshirt hanging over his tortured face that's planted in his ham-sized hands. Hey, Caleb, what's going on, man? Ms. S, I gotta go. I can't do this crap anymore. I can't effing do it, Ms. S. Okay, yeah, okay. Things suck, kiddo. Things in life can really suck, man. That is for damn sure. But could we talk to a crisis worker, Caleb? Could we call? Have them come? Oh no, Ms. S. I done that shit. Doesn't help. Yeah, I know. But I want you on the planet, Caleb. A whole bunch of people who love you want you on the planet. Hey, remember how you showed Michael and me your skateboard designs? Your dream of your own shop? This shit you feel right now, this negative feeling, thinking about being gone, it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. We need you here, Caleb. There's only one you. There's no one else like you. You're special. You have something to give to the world. You don't know what that is yet, but it's true, really. I want you to play your hand, Caleb. Can we call, please? Small nod. Tears fall down. then they stream. Okay, good. Okay, good. Let's see about getting you some more help, okay? My memory is stuffed with so many variations on this theme. When either my child or one of my students who suffers with clinical depression becomes suicidal, the average wait for a crisis bed is days, often weeks. During this agonizing limbo, I spend, students' families spend, countless hours in the unique hell of understaffed ERs with limited psychiatric resources while we desperately seek help. If a placement is found, it could be hundreds of miles from home. I will visit my child or my students wherever that may be. In a rural state like Maine, the ratio of adolescent psychiatrists to the population in need is abysmally disproportional. The handful of qualified and beleaguered counselors are completely swamped. This is America. We're a leader in Western culture. If you've spent this kind of anguished time in ERs waiting for crisis beds, sought outpatient services regular folks can afford, spent night after sleepless night feeling completely alone, helpless, hopeless, anxiously looking for someone, something, anything that could help your child, your loved one, and met the exhausted saints bearing crushing caseloads who soldier on at work in the mental health fields, you know how much is wrong, how much needs to be addressed. Where's the continuum? Where are options for least restrictive environment available to folks with passive suicidal ideation and not considered an immediate threat to themselves? Why is it a choice between essentially no services at all or mandatory lockup? Where is the support for loved ones, half crazed with fear themselves? What the hell is wrong with us? Emotional disability is extra horrific because you can't observe its physical manifestation. We would never admonish a blind person to just look, it's right over there. Can't you see it? But that is exactly what we do to folks with depression and other mental illnesses every day. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, man. You can do it. If a person could, they would. Absolutely none of this is about not trying. Depression can make getting out of bed, talking, returning a text, taking a walk, eating a meal, brushing your teeth, for Christ's sakes, a Herculean task. A task that for the sufferer is insurmountable. To truly help people, we need to first grasp the complexity of mental illness and how insidiously it can impact every aspect of living, something understandably difficult for healthy folks to do. But we have to try to see through a different lens in order to understand a brain, a body that works differently from ours. I know that it's hard to do, often profoundly frustrating, but we need to do much better. When I entered the field of emotional and behavioral disabilities in students, I was further schooled in this area. These studies made me realize I couldn't apply rational thought to an effort of understanding conditions fueled by something other than rational thinking. Blind adherence to rational thought has made me wonder if those of us who think we are in our right minds are the ones who are completely out of our heads. And for clarity, we urgently need a new word or expression for clinical depression and anxiety. We have to differentiate these conditions from transient depressions or appropriate worry. I made up my name for clinical depression with anxiety, DEP-ANX, because for the sufferer, these evil twins often coexist, creating the ghastly funhouse of horrors that are absolutely zero fun and that sufferers know the horror of all too well. When your team loses, or you accidentally shrink your favorite jeans in the wash, or even when your lover leaves you, that is not clinical depression. Yes, you are sad for a time, and you may have difficulty navigating life, but eventually you go on. Clinical depression is a clusterfuck of symptoms that often make it impossible to get out of bed, never mind go on with daily life. Absence of calm, forget joy, inertia, sleepiness, agitation, somatic symptoms, loss of appetite, self-loathing, guilt, shame, crippling anxiety, and the ever-present and terrifying danger of self-harm and suicidal ideation come together in a toxic hell that make people's well-meant admonitions to just try this or that actually harmful. Because not only do you have a miasma of negativity swirling inside you, you feel guilty and ashamed that you are absolutely unable to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You don't even know what the hell that means. Does anyone? To loved ones and those hoping to help, the paralysis and inertia so common in clinical depression is both frustrating and frighteningly real. We watch it unfold unendingly in real time. My child wants this pain to stop. Everyone wants their loved one's pain to stop. And it's excruciating to sit and watch helplessly while the one you love is in depression's torturous thrall. Got to find better ways to encircle sufferers with multiple methodologies and paths towards healing and health. We need a Manhattan Project or a moonshot to address the dearth of health interventions in this country. It would take money, lots of money, and a society less focused on acquiring stuff, fame, fortune, and one focused on the welfare of its citizens, all its citizens. A society committed to helping its people live an engaged, connected, meaningful life. And a society that implicitly understands all of us are on the spectrum of mental health and illness, and at any point could fall from one end to the other. A society whose concern for the health of all its citizens matters, not only to the individual, but to that society as a whole. There is no health without the mental part. What services do exist in this country are paltry in relation to the overwhelming need. The webs aren't connected. They're isolated and random help systems where one provider may be unable ethically to speak to another, unable to share value key in helping. I've sat in the ravages of hell with my child while the system has routinely failed us. There are thousands of families like mine. You might be one, or you might know one, or you might know one and not know it. Everyone is afraid to speak about this, to tell their scary truth, risk the stigma so often associated with it. It's not gone. If my child is in peril, no matter their age, I will be a lion mother and fight to get what services are needed. I'm fortunate to have some skill in this battle, but I'll admit the emotional toll is steep, awfully steep. And it's a lonely fight, let me tell you. Few people know how to navigate what meager help systems are available. People need help. We're desperate. I wish I could say that clinical depression ends, mental illness abates, has an expiration date when it is outgrown or permanently resolved, but I sadly can't. And the lack of multi-tiered systems for help remains static. It's depressing. We're desperately in need of a new word for, a new understanding of, and better treatments for clinical depression and every single other mental disorder. And one day, maybe mental health services, social services, services to help those in so much invisible pain will simply be referred to as part of wellness, as part of rightly and generously addressed and funded public health.
Thank you, Lisa. Beautiful,
Well
beautiful.
Very
Yes.
well spoken.
And I would like you to know that Lisa has a memoir that is coming out in August called Chimera, A Shapeshifter's Journey. And this is one of the stories that's in it. Very, very important. Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much. Okay, next up is Peter Welch. Okay, Peter.
Thank you, Suze. Thank you, Lisa. It's September 1988. Paul, a friend and UNH colleague, is harassed by a gaggle of frat boys at a football game tailgating event one recent Saturday afternoon. Paul is there representing the Alliance, an LGBTQIA support organization on campus. As the other out gay man at UNH, I joined Paul in solidarity for an educational intervention. I'm both anxious and ready for this teachable moment. A few days later, we meet at the fraternity house to a standing room only crowd. The group leaders welcome us with a handshake and a smile. Diplomats. We are introduced, and as Paul begins sharing his experience of being harassed with homophobic epithets by some of the men here, I scan the room, observing a quiet and respectful attention, all eyes on how courage and truth manifest before us. When it's my turn to speak, I've already decided to imagine each of the men in the room as young boys, sweet, soft, and kind. I tell them this is what I'm doing. I search for eyes from which to connect. As I do this, I see empathy and embarrassment, kindness and sorrow, goodness and regret. I wonder aloud with them about what happens to so many of us throughout our boyhoods as we stare into the face of masculinity and manhood, often relinquishing our humanness for the sake of fitting in, for the sake of being one of the boys. We turn away from our own softness, unable to bear what might occur when another male discovers that we too are vulnerable. Indeed, I wonder with them if homophobic bullying acts might be our collective reaction to another man's soft underbelly, and that if we could each muster the courage to witness this softness, to give it a voice and celebrate its existence within ourselves and other boys and men, the rewards to our humanity would be greater than our wildest imaginations. Nearly 40 years later, I still ask these kinds of questions about my own masculinity and manhood. As boys and men, we're still in trouble. We reject a soft underbelly at our own peril. Q. Donald, 45 and now 47. On Wikipedia, he is described as a difficult child, a difficult boy. How did Fred and Marianne parent a challenging son? Give him everything he demanded? Attempt to beat the difficult out of him? Or was he just born this way, deeply troubled? He's the fourth of 5 children. Did his brother Fred Jr., the eldest boy, usurp his place in an expected trajectory? Was being the fourth born too little for his young ego to tolerate? What happened at the Kew Forest School in Queens, which he attended until the 7th grade? Surely he was bullied. But what else occurred to shatter his soul, leaving him with no capacity to experience empathy for another? And then I wonder, did he have moments of happiness at home or at school? Was he kind? Did he enjoy learning? Was he a good friend? Did he experience grace? I desperately want to know this, if he ever knew a moment of grace. If he has, then maybe there's a chance for some kind of psychic recalibration, a chance for him to know empathy, kindness, compassion, and love. If only those walls of his boyhood life could talk to help us understand what transpired in making him the monster he is today.
Oh, Peter, it's so brave and such an interesting way to think of that orange man. We have to make people human. Beautiful, lovely work. Thank you. Gorgeous. Okay, Jen Babcock. Hi, Jen.
Hi. Force, life, or despair. I want to be able to get a hold of my life, pick it up, shake off the dirt, examine it, measure it, figure out how to adjust to the reality of our country today, stretch some parts, poke protruding nodes back into the mass of it, work it until it begins to throb with a new heartbeat, until it becomes stronger. Feed it with nourishing input until it is a force that can't be taken down. In my tortured sleep this week, I was, but wasn't me. The me that I dreamed was a tiny, hand-sized human. Larger hands moved me where they wanted me to be, just picked me up and took me places I didn't agree to go. Far away, uncomfortable places, covered me with black handkerchiefs so I couldn't see where they were taking me, threw me in bags, jostled and bruised. They abused me. I had no control over where I was or what I was doing, just was at the mercy of the hands. I found out from my congressperson that there's nothing they can do for Winta, her husband, and 3 children, who we are in the process of bringing as refugees to the United States through the now defunct Welcome Corps program. I tried every avenue possible, putting weight on the words special cases when speaking to my representatives. Winta's family only needed their interview with USCIS and their medical screening when we got hit with a different president in January. We had all the money raised for them to resettle them here and were in the process of looking for housing. They are stuck in Ethiopia now at the whim of one person who throws lives of people away and mocks them while doing it, who doesn't care, who seethes, then relishes in reckless power. What control can we muster? I had to do something. I decided to use some of the money we raised to rent a safe place for them to live in Ethiopia. There's enough in the account to keep her housed safely for 8 years. Rent for a secure, comfortable home in her town is under $200 a month. But for perspective, she can only make $20 a month, working from early in the morning until late in the evening. Even if her husband also makes $20 a month, they still can't afford a safe place to live. And who would watch her children? Hanging over their heads is always the threat that they could be thrown in jail for having escaped oppression in Eritrea. Maybe before their money runs out, we'll have a country that welcomes refugees again. Waita's family is still in the pipeline, Welcome Corps or not. People who were earlier in the process aren't so lucky. Their cases are entirely washed away. Maybe by the time 4 years is up, we'll have a salvageable nation. Perhaps possibilities of her coming here will open again in the tattered remains of our country. I'm looking for something that gels together, a path to move forward through my days to make me feel more secure, less confused. I need to get a hold of my life, grab onto something that works in a world that doesn't, and run with it before despair takes my strength to run.
Wow. Oh my
So
God.
lovely, Jen. Just
Thank you, Jen.
yes, thank you for that. So beautiful. Oh my goodness. All right, we're going to close out the program with Roland Tech.
I have no firsthand knowledge of what my family was like before I arrived on the scene, but I do know that the house I grew up in was generally a sunny place and in no way diminished by the shadows of the Holocaust. By the time I arrived in 1966, it had been 20 years since the end of the war. Most everything in American life looked forward instead of back. The mid-century modern decor my mother impeccably selected bore no relation whatsoever to the one-room shack in rural Poland where, under an assumed name with false papers to back it up, a little Jewish girl with blonde hair and blue eyes learned to pass. There were no labels on the Tupperware containers full of leftovers filling the Frigidaire to remind my mother of the hunger she had tried to forget each night in order to fall asleep. And the hourly noisy entrances my father made, running past Mom's desk into the living room, through the kitchen, and up and down the stairs, all in the name of blood circulation, did nothing to betray the man who slipped out of Nazi-occupied Europe just in the nick of time and passed through half a dozen border checkpoints unscathed, in large part by blending in. Nothing about them suggested that the Techs were people whose extended families had simply disappeared in a war where Mom and Dad knew that as survivors, they were the exception rather than the rule, and the explanation for that could quite plausibly be summed up in 2 words: dumb luck. To anybody entering the house at 11 Rockyfield Road, none of this history would have been apparent. And so I, too, entered the house I grew up in and the family inside it, blissfully ignorant of the history of oppression that had actually carried my parents up and out and across the ocean to land here in 1960s suburban Connecticut, where our neighbor, Joe Palmero, a chain-smoking dental supplies rep, had welcomed my parents to the neighborhood with the helpful advice that here on Rockyfield Road, we like to keep the grass cut to 2 inches or less. The story goes, Dad smiled politely, shook Joe Palmero's hand, thanked him for stopping by, and then promptly got on the phone to the nearest nursery in order to order the delivery of 20 pine trees to line the front of the lot. If there was potential conflict with neighbors, friends, or coworkers, Leon Tech usually found a way to avoid it. His trust in his own tuition gave Dad the ability to take quick action to protect what mattered to him most. In that brief introduction on the front porch of their new house, it was easy for Dad to recognize that Joe Palmero was not going to figure prominently in their new suburban life. It was also easy for Dad to recognize that just because Palmero wanted power over his neighbors didn't mean Dad had to relinquish it. His natural charm ensured that as Joe crossed the street back to his house, he probably believed that his new neighbor was simply grateful to have been spared the humiliation of deviating from the grass-cutting conventions of Rockyfield Road. Suburban America at that time was fast emerging as a safe and predictable environment in which to start a family. There were rules for everything, which served to make it hardly necessary to speak to anyone. Everyone knew where the front yard ended and the town sidewalk began. The place Mom and Dad had come from was a part of the world where borders shifted overnight, underneath one's feet, and the citizenship rights of Jews were so precarious that there were times when, in order to survive, a Jew might have no other option than to attempt to disappear into the background, hide out another few weeks, months, years, ride it out and hope for more favorable conditions around the bend. None of Mom's American friends knew anything about this before I was born. When asked where she was from, Nechama Tech had a one-word answer which she would use only when necessary. You know, Nechama, I don't think I know where you're from. Europe, she would answer in a tone of voice, making it clear to the friend who had dared to ask that this answer would itself constitute the beginning, middle, and end of this particular topic of conversation. Mom wasn't concerned when I told her that everybody else's lunches at school consisted of ham or tuna sandwiches on white bread with lettuce and mayonnaise packed in plastic sandwich bags, accompanied by potato chips or a cookie. She didn't seem at all interested as I described the way some kids stared as I pulled out my tin foil wrapped salami sandwiches. These were constructed of Hebrew national salami, which she sliced by hand into half-inch thick hockey pucks slathered in mustard. Always an apple or an orange, and never any junk food of any kind. And the worst part of it all was that when we were done, all the other kids would breeze by the row of trash bins by the kitchen to toss out their plastic bags, saran wrap, napkins, and paper bags, while I was forced to neatly fold up my tin foil and tuck it into my knapsack to bring it back to Mom for recycling. All of this long before any of us had even heard the word. I grew up in a house full of books, thousands of books. There was a wall of bookcases in the living room, walls of bookcases in Dad's office, Mom's office, every bedroom in the house. And these bookcases reached from the floor to the ceiling. It took a long time for me to get curious about what might be waiting for me in those books. For most of my early years, they just felt like a vast mountain, stony in their silence, holding the answers to almost any unforeseen question that life in that house might toss up. It makes sense that I would have seen these mountain faces as repositories of answers to life's questions, because it was not unusual for Dad to interrupt an animated conversation, to jump up from his seat on the sofa or a chair at the dining room table, to sprint to the wall of books in his office where the entire 1973 Encyclopedia Britannica waited for him. He would reach the wall in an instant. Often it seemed I hadn't even had a chance to see him sprint to it. I just knew he was there again by the sound of his shoes hitting the corner where the wooden bookcase met the tiled floor, followed quickly by two other sounds: the tap, tap, tapping of his index finger along the shelf he was searching, and his sotto voce singing of the label on each bound volume of the encyclopedia. They were alphabetical, but the first entry and last entry in any one volume seemed to be a random, unpredictable result of just how much wisdom the editors had seen fit to stuff between 2 points. Mer to mix, Ms to net, noi to obs. It was quite common for my parents and their closest friends to engage in conversations that somehow found their way to a point of disagreement. Whenever the grown-ups arrived at one of these conversational cul-de-sacs, it was Dad's job to pull them out of it. And he was uniquely suited to the task because he contained just the right combination of impatience and absolute faith in the value of his library. Both these traits made him move quickly and decisively in his pursuit of answers. You never saw my dad pull a book from a shelf and wonder about its authority on its subject. I think he believed, and so I accepted as true, that all the books on all the shelves at 11 Rockyfield Road had been placed there for a reason. It wasn't until years had passed that I was able to connect the dots among several Westport parents who treated me with something vaguely smelling of resentment or disdain. My friend Francine's father, Stanley Goodman, treated me most oddly. He was a pretentious, status-obsessed little man who made sure that every time 15-year-old Roland Tech passed through his home, the conversation would be chock full of vocabulary words I had not yet learned. In his charmless way, Stanley Goodman always managed to catch my eye just at the moment one of these SAT words sailed through his lips. And every time I cursed myself for blushing, for feeling instantly naked, exposed in my ignorance, teetering on the edge between confessing that I did not know what he was talking about and my outsized ability to fake my way through these tedious exchanges by relying on context and body language and my own ability to sound as though I was saying something while hardly saying anything at all. It was for this reason more than any other that as my friendship with Francine blossomed, I developed habits aimed at avoiding having to traipse through that family room. I didn't understand that when my best friend David's alcoholic father asked me again and again whether my brilliant mother had won any new awards lately, that he was lobbing some kind of twisted accusation at the son of one of these foreigners, these overeducated techs who persisted in butchering the English language with their barely intelligible Eastern European accents and their endless publications of books and articles and profiles of their various accomplishments. I mean, Leon Tech had been a guest on the Phil Donahue show more than twice, and Nechama had famously surprised and charmed Merv Griffin by interrupting his interview to proclaim, "You actually read the book?" Who the hell did Leon and Nechama Tech think they were to be so frequently and comfortably in the spotlight? Didn't they understand that all the awards and accolades and advanced degrees displayed on their office walls would never make up for the fact that they did not entirely belong here? And yet, neither of them ever did or said a single thing which may have led me to doubt for 1 second the fact that Leon and Nechama Tech were utterly at home right here in this cozy corner of America, just about an hour north of New York City.
Beautiful. Wow.
Great.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
You.
Tonight was special. All of those words. I feel more elevated, lifted, informed, and happy to go out and fight this, what we need to fight. So thank you all for coming.